So I was like really alone. Like my parents couldn't even come. So then, turns out the car seat, I accidentally left the car seats outside and it rained. So when I brought the car seats back in, um, they were completely covered in mold again. Well, I just really wanted to go to Walmart and buy new car seats because that was the only way, because we were in such a nasty, wet place that I couldn't even wash them and like let them air out. And it was the kind where you couldn't remove the fabric. Like it's just kind of like a couch, like it's part of the thing. So even if I did wash it, like they'd be soaking wet. And so I was all panicked thinking I wouldn't be able to leave the house. And oh, and then when I brought the car seats in from the house too, like a whole bunch of ants just poured out. So it was like one thing on top of the other, because normally now when I see ants, it's totally no big deal. Again, it was the state of mind I was in. So, you know, if people say, "Ugh, good grief, it was just ants, you know, blah, blah, blah," it really wasn't the ants. It's never the ants. It's like the whole issue. So the ants are pouring out all over the floor. And then my son brings in the cereal and just pours it out on the living room floor, like all of the kicks, and like the whole box just went everywhere. So I just like run to my room and I just start sobbing and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And so it's actually still kind of fresh, which is crazy, but I can't believe I'm starting to cry. This was so long ago. But anyways, so then my 3.5-year-old comes in, and this is when you know you're doing a good job, you know? Because you think that your child just screams at you all the time, which she did. But then when I was crying in there, she came in, and she's like 3.5. I mean, that's little. And she came in, and she started patting my back and rocking me and going, shh, 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 like that. And then she started singing. Like, she started patting me and rocking me and singing. And so then, of course, I stopped crying because I was like, oh my goodness, my daughter is the sweetest person in the world. And then she looks at me and says, how about we go pick up that cereal in the living room? Would that be fun? And I'll never, ever, ever forget that line. Will that be fun? So now that's always the inside joke with anyone that ever knows that story. Like if something goes wrong, like if Chad's really upset about something, I'm like, well, let's go blah, blah, blah. Would that be fun? And so I'll just never forget that, how Mercedes did that. But anyways, so I called my parents, and so that got my mind off of it for a little bit. But then I call my parents, and I'm just like sobbing to them, and they were on vacation somewhere. I can't remember, like way too far away. So of course, if you're a parent, when your child is sobbing and sobbing and sobbing because they're having such a hard time, of course it was like super hard for them and put them in panic mode, because they know I've struggled with alcoholism, and even if I didn't have that problem, like even if I was a perfect child that didn't have issues, it's still like super hard on a parent. And so they were like, call somebody, have them come over, because I just wanted someone to watch my kids so I can go to Walmart and buy new car seats. I felt like that's all I wanted. I just wanted to go to Walmart. I mean, if I could have just done anything, it was get new car seats so they wouldn't be moldy. So I was like, no one. Every time I call anyone, they're at work. I was like, everyone works. There's nobody home until like 6 o'clock in the evening, and then my kids are already asleep, and blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, there is no one. And I was like, and people won't ever come over. I mean, like Dee Dee and Amber, they're gone, and I was just going on and on and on. And so then, of course, my parents were, my dad has learned in life, if you don't make it sound like an emergency, then people won't respond, which is true, you know? But, so he ended up calling this lady in the church and totally made it sound like a total emergency, like her kids are in danger, blah, 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 which he meant, like, if I took them to Walmart without seatbelts, which is totally illegal, especially when they're that little. So that's what he meant by in danger. And of course, it probably sounded like I was getting ready to strangle my kids or something. It probably sounded really, really, really bad. So when the lady came over, and and when she saw what I was sobbing about, she was just, because she was going through a lot too. Her sister was really sick and stuff like that. So on her end, she comes and looks that I'm crying about ants and kicks on the floor, and like totally just pretty much goes off on me. So, and I totally get her side. I really do. But in the state I was in, like, it was like the most devastating day of my life. Like, probably comparable to when I got pregnant when I was 16, and 2 days after he found out, he broke up with me at a school dance. I mean, it was that bad, seriously. But anyways, and again, this person isn't horrible. She was like, her sister was sick and she was in the hospital, and then it totally sounded like an emergency, and then she comes over and I'm like, my house is moldy and there's ants on the floor, and my son spilled the kicks, and she's probably like, seriously? My sister's dying and I get called over because there's ants on the floor? So I totally get her side. And at this time, I didn't know that my dad made it sound like an emergency. See, this is why communication is good. This is a lesson in communication. That's why I feel like she should have said, why in the world did your dad call and say, your children are in danger, blah, 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 and I would have been like, what? And then we could have talked about that and been like, oh my goodness, so I had no idea why she was so mad. So, so she was saying all this stuff about how, parents all the time that's just life. You have to raise kids, and how hard her life was, and how her husband was gone all the time because he worked 3 jobs, and all this stuff. And yes, people have pain that are worse than others, but we all are different. Some people are stronger. Some people have a stronger personality, I wish everyone in the world could take that test where it's like peace country, perfect country, fun country, and control country. I'm from peace country and fun country. Those are my 2 countries. Like, someone who just needs peace and stuff, it's going to be harder for someone who's from control country and who's strong, and control country thrives on being a mom. They get to control these little people. Well, I don't like controlling people. I actually like being told what to do. So it's harder for me, than someone's. And I'm not saying it's harder for me than someone else. I'm totally not saying my life is harder than other people's. That's exactly what I'm saying, is we should never, ever compare hardships in life. Ever. I mean, how could I take away from someone who's crying just because I had it harder? Like, if someone came to me crying and they were in serious pain, like, I would never be like, look here, my son was dying while my husband was deployed for a year, so you should dry up those tears and you have nothing to cry about. Like, that's why I feel like everyone in the world, if you're sad, talk to me, because I will never think that you shouldn't be crying about something. Or I feel like that if I had one gift in the world, it would be to let people vent to me and stuff, because I want to know why you're sad, and I will like feel for you and all that stuff, and never think about how I've had it harder. Or anyways,